mainstream media in this country and in America and in Canada. Canada has really gone woke crazy on this stuff.
Today wasn't just a day filled with a lot of very bad news. It was also a day where the mask slipped over and over again. This is exactly why trust in the media keeps on collapsing. Have you ever noticed how the people who say don't politicize this always tell you that after they have already politicized it? The virtue signaling, the moral grandstanding always seems to come so much faster than accountability does. I'm Jasmine Lane. Like, share, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Did you know that it is International Kindness Week? I sure didn't. It's funny how they only use things like that when it's really convenient, hey? But I'm kind of tired of all these people lecturing us about empathy and then mocking the people whom they disagree with. So if you felt like something was incredibly off today, as well as yesterday, of course, you weren't wrong. Let's go ahead and connect some of those dots that they really don't want you connecting right now.
Is this the show where we're supposed to tell the truth about politics? Is this we're supposed to tell the truth? He's too unattractive physically to be successful in politics. He's not going to be the leader of a political party.
Oh, I don't know if I'd agree with that. I don't know if his looks are. I'm not going to weigh in on
which
that
part.
one,
that he's too unattractive, or that he is unattractive. I mean, you got to break this down, Fred. I know it's day one, but come on.
As soon as the election was over, he immediately put out a.
I can't believe you're going to dismiss this as not mattering. Of course, it matters.
I think he's well spoken, and I'm not ever going to say if a guy looks good or bad. I just can't do it.
I think this just really goes to highlight how superficial and hollow so many people think. I have no idea who that old guy is in the top. This is the first thing I've ever seen of him, to my knowledge. But of course, you have Scott Reed, a very common CTV panelist who loathes conservatives. And the second gentleman there who was responding is actually from Power and Politics panels. His name is Fred Delory. And the person who they say is just too ugly to be in politics or to have any meaning because of his appearance is Jamil Javani. Yes, this was in their recent episode about Jamil Javani's trip to Washington. And this is on the show Curse of Politics, which is actually one of the many shows under air quotes media, which is actually owned by a whole bunch of people who formerly worked on campaigns and whatever from all across the spectrum. They have a number of podcasts on there. But I do gotta wonder what TELUS, who is the official show sponsor of Curse of Politics, as you see here, it says Curse of Politics, presented by TELUS, as well as CN Rail, though they likely don't have nearly as much money in the game because TELUS is on the website and they are just in a tiny little hyperlink, would have to say about the fact that a show that they're paying a lot of money to be a part of would have two white men laughing about how ugly a black cancer survivor man is, and how because this black cancer survivor is, as they call, too unattractive, he can't provide any real meaningful change effectively in his line of work. I just wonder if that is a statement that they would proudly put their name behind. It will never cease to amaze me, the hypocrisy. And honestly, whenever I see things like this, it just reminds me, it is such a blaring visual reminder of, I don't ever want to be like you. And I think that that is a great example, something that positive that we can take away from this, conservatives, is that we don't ever want to be like them. No, we don't. Every single time they do something like that, it's a reminder not to attack back, not to cave to your egotistical whim at every turn like they often do, but to actually have control of our lives. Because when you're caving to your egotistical whim, you're caving for the clicks constantly, you are no longer in control of your life. Something else is, and I will pray for you. But thank you very much, Curse of Politics, for the gentle reminder that I will do everything in my power to ensure that my future children are raised to be the polar opposite to you, and that my nephews as well are raised to be far more respectable, commendable men than you. Not to mention that CTV News published this, which they routed through the Canadian press, as you can see here. National Kindness Week takes on a different meaning after Tumbler Ridge shooting. That is very interesting that on the same day of that tragic news, you have political pundits on television that we pay for with our tax dollars who are going on air laughing about how a Black cancer survivor, his dreams are just never going to come true. It's not because he's not good at his job. No, it's because we just hate looking at him. That's pretty well what they were inferring there, right? Am I wrong? I don't know. You can replay that, maybe go watch the whole episode and tell me if I got that tone a little bit wrong. And then, sure enough, the following day, hey, Canadians, this is just so terrible. Man, it's International Kindness Week. You need to be kinder. Don't listen to us. Do as I say, not as I do. It doesn't matter if I insult half the population because of their skin color. It doesn't matter if I insult half the population because they voted differently than me. You should be kind because it's International Kindness Week. Weird how it is Wednesday and they haven't posted a damn thing about International Kindness Week until this. How very, very convenient.
Minister, what do you believe fundamentally the role of CBC is?
I think, and even if you were to consider one of the great philosophers of the conservative movement, in Burke, that it, as I mentioned earlier, is a fourth pillar of democracy. So keeping me, you accountable to the public by making sure there is reliable information that people can have and consume as they get their information about whatever they want, but most importantly, judge and elect people like me and you to this place.
Interesting. So Mark Miller claims that the purpose of the CBC is a fourth pillar. Sounds very reasonable, but if the CBC is meant to provide reliable information, could you explain this one for me?
In fact, everybody in the town of Tumbler Ridge and beyond.
Did you catch that? Everyone in the town of Tumbler Ridge. Well, that's not the name, so that's not reliable or accurate. It's also not neutral to throw Donald Trump's name,
Tumbler Ridge and beyond,
into an event where there is a pew-pew and children. Well, my goodness, that must just be a one-off. Fair enough. It's an emotional moment for you to just randomly invoke Trump. Makes no sense at all, right? So that must have just been a very weird slip of the tongue that you didn't correct either, I'd like to add. But then there's this.
Yeah, I think about the United States where, first of all, they have a lot of school shootings. I mean, if you look proportionally at the fact they have 10 times the population that we do, they still have way more than 10 times the number of school shootings. But very quickly after each of those shootings, it devolves into partisan politics. I don't see that happening here. I don't. But you tell me. In terms of how do you see the political reaction to this unfolding?
This isn't about liking or disliking Donald Trump. It's actually about the mental default settings. And I'm at a point where I am starting to believe that Trump derangement syndrome in this country is far more corrosive to anything than any of the other threats. I really believe that because it is bizarre. This is literally when there is a Canadian tragedy. Subconsciously or consciously, it's rooted through Trump. It's explained through U.S. culture. It's framed through American polarization. We're so much better than them, though. Are you kidding me right now? And that tells us something incredibly important. The fact that certain media institutions no longer at all in the slightest process events neutrally. They process them ideologically always. And we see that play out with every freaking broadcast from these people. And that is because they're victims of conditioning themselves, right? And I also just cannot even believe that this man will go through and filter everything through USA, Donald Trump, mega, and then say, let's not politicize this. We're not going to do that, are we? You just did. You just did. And, I would say that if everything in our media keeps getting framed and filtered through Donald Trump and America, maybe the problem isn't the audience. Maybe it is the broadcaster.
Does a television show about a tomato that speaks to children about colonialism fit that?
I don't know. What do you think?
I would say that's not something that government needs to subsidize. There have also been, just to use a recent example, a CBC News story called "I Felt People Would Judge Me for Getting Botox, Then I Realized I Was Judging Myself." I haven't read that. It may or may not be interesting, but is this vital to the Canadian identity and cultural fabric that we must pay for this?
Well, I think you expect your public broadcaster to have shows that are relevant to the public. It doesn't have to be necessarily relevant to you or me. And as an important aspect of that, I shouldn't be telling them what to do. I can have my view on it, but again, I shouldn't be telling them what to do.
If CBC were not there, is the belief that there would be no one else to broadcast the Olympics? Something that countries around the world or broadcasters around the world spend huge amounts of money for the rights to do. Why is a state broadcaster needed to galvanize what could be a moneymaker for private media companies?
You could probably debate about it, but I just think it makes sense. There could be, but also the CBC does a pretty good job of it. And why wouldn't it do?
Do you believe CBC's role should be to fill gaps that otherwise no one else would fill, or is it to, do something, even if it means competing with private players in the market?
I think definitely it's a lot of the former and perhaps some of the latter. We talked with my colleague Ken McDonald about getting into remote regions. I think CBC has a duty to get that information into more remote regions where it isn't economically viable to do so. So absolutely. Maintaining the vitality of our official languages, especially in Francophone communities outside Quebec, is key, given the state of the language in those communities.
I don't know if the Tomato spoke about colonialism in both official languages or not.
Maybe not, but I'm sure it did a great job of it.
Okay. I yield to Ms. Thomas.
I will say that at the beginning of Mark Miller's testimony there, he referenced Burke, which is pretty ironic because invoking Burke, who, by the way, just to fill you in, is an Anglo-Irish statesman, author, philosopher. He's widely regarded as the founder of modern-day conservatism. Edmund Burke, he died in 1797, as it's a long time ago. It's a deep history there. It's kind of weird to see Mark Miller use the legacy, the philosophy and wisdom of Edmund Burke in this way because it was very much misused here because he's saying it to justify that the CBC is a fourth pillar of democracy. And actually, Burke, he believes that institutions matter. Nobody is saying that institutions are irrelevant and that they don't matter. That's not what anybody is saying whatsoever. What Burke actually believed in was that institutions were inherited trust, not ideological tools, that they don't belong to the government of the day. They don't belong to one ideology, and they are held in trust, respected in trust to past, future, and present citizens. So, he didn't believe that institutions existed to shape the public. He believed that they existed to serve the public, and that they were trusted to do so based on decades and generations of them existing. So what the CBC has turned into over the last 20 years or so is not at all what Burke believed in. So what a weird way to try to disarm people there. He also believed, and Burke did, that power required a lot of restraint, especially moral power. He warned that the most dangerous tyranny isn't brute force, it's moral certainty. He totally opposed abstract ideologies, the whole elites, they know better, because that guy's rich and I'm poor, so he knows better than me, and that institutions that claim virtue as justification for power, that is exactly where the CBC problem lands, because Burke feared institutions that believed their intentions were so pure that they no longer needed restraint. That sounds an awful lot like how the CBC is propped up, what they're using that for. And not to say that every single thing on there is terrible. Of course not. They definitely do provide good news from time to time. They provide good updates from time to time. But as we just witnessed, we're facing an era of CBC where they're literally publishing themselves into irrelevance because they are so ideologically tilted. They are so unreasonable in that. They are using their programs to indoctrinate an ideology into our youth, into our public, to put people against each other, to be divisive, to claim that, oh, well, if you're liberal, you're right, and if you're conservative, you're wrong. That's not what Burke believed in at all. So to use his name is just like slanderous.
So algorithms can, in fact, then result in speech censorship. What do you make of that? If algorithms are compelled, it means that people will be able to see certain content and not other content. That means certain content can be put into, some abyss somewhere where folks cannot access it, or they can post it, but then it'll automatically be hidden because of an algorithm. That's censorship. It's keeping some people from being able to say what they would like to say online, and it's keeping others from being able to see what they would like to be able to see or listen to online.
And under that legislation, by the way, we have totally normal news stories or stories that go against the liberal government's narrative to get them elected that are being shadow banned, that aren't getting views. Like, do you have any idea how freaking hard it is? God bless you for having the viewership that so many of us conservative creators are able to have. But it is hard in Canada to be a conservative on the internet. It is very hard. There is absolutely suppression. And that compared to what does get promoted. And again, let's think about Burke in this situation where Cult Montreal, which receives tons of money from the government, post this: it's time to have an honest discussion about critical thinking. Yikes. The less educated you are, the more likely you are to vote conservative. That's what's getting promoted.
I don't think there's any suggestion that the CRTC is going to suppress algorithms or suppress speech by making sure people are behaving responsibly. Are you suggesting otherwise?
By the CRTC's own omission, they are saying that they do have
sorry,
the ability...
you said omission or admission.
By their own admission, sorry, thank you. They are saying that they have the ability to compel certain algorithms to be...
the CRTC is a regulatory agency. It has to live up to the standards constituent
And in order
charters.
to achieve the outcomes of Bill C-11, it would then be incumbent upon the CRTC to compel certain algorithms to be enacted.
I think you're reading a lot more into that than what the CRTC is actually doing, which is
Are you able then to assure Canadians here today that that will not in fact be the case, that algorithms will not be compelled, that outcomes will not be instituted?
Are you suggesting that any platform can use any algorithm to push its own narrative and content into the Canadian public?
Minister,
and that should be
I'm
unregulated?
just asking for assurance for the Canadian
Well,
people.
I'm asking
if you can in fact assure them that algorithms will not be mandated in such a way that it would control certain things from appearing online and others mandated to appear online.
What I can assure Canadians is that the CRTC can and is expected to do its job, which is to make sure we have a properly regulated
Which they are
broadcast
saying that they have the ability to compel algorithms. So, Minister, what you are effectively saying then is that you stand behind that.
I think we agree to disagree on that.
With all due respect, I think that is exactly what you just admitted to.
These same institutions that want and have received the power to decide what you see online, or as Mark Miller describes it, in order to ensure that Canadians who are online are behaving appropriately, are also the same institutions that get to decide how you understand tragedy, how you understand world events, and what questions you're allowed to ask when it happens. If you happened to catch CBC's broadcast last night, when it came to Tumbler Ridge, they were very careful with their details. In fact, they had segments where they encouraged the public not to believe everything you see online, which later turned out to be true, because they were giving you the official information. There's a lot of noise right now, but trust us, believe us. Even though it took them well over 17 hours before they released any information about who this individual was, why they may have done it. And in that 17-hour time frame, there had already been dozens of independent outlets in Canada, as well as other outlets throughout the globe that were accurately reporting on exactly what it was that happened.
It helps nobody to hide behind obfuscations and in clarity. It's right that people know the truth about this, and not to hide.
And it does matter. I mean, people will be very specific about, someone arriving in a school at 10:24 or be very specific about these things. Well, we need to be specific about who commits the crime. And we've had this issue. I mean, Scotland has gone completely mad on it, but mainstream media in this country and in America and in Canada has really, really gone woke crazy on this stuff. Will routinely, newspapers here and online here will routinely report things which are factually untrue. They will report that, a boy has died or a girl has died, when actually it is the opposite sex because they don't want to misgender. I mean,
to highlight this, I'm just going to put this text up on screen because I can't say it. Otherwise, I'll get in trouble from YouTube, unfortunately. But I have taken the time to highlight just a few different news articles that are describing he, she, person. Which one is it?
And not correct it. And some of the time, I'm actually going, I actually don't know who this person is. And yet this is one of the most key facts. We know people's names and we know their sex. That's kind of like the key, and their age. Those kind of the key facts about people, because they are the most relevant facts.
It's true, especially when you have somebody and you have emergency alerts, lockdowns taking place in your community, to be as specific as possible once you know. Not worry about the virtue signaling, not worry about activists getting upset with you. You need to tell people what's going on so that they know. And a lot of people, I saw Reddit threads about this last night, were very confused when that emergency alert came out, saying that the suspect was a brown-haired woman in a dress. People were like, a dress? It's cold outside. Why are you wearing a dress? What? That doesn't make any sense. A woman in a dress? What? A lot of other people could put the pieces together from that. I'm definitely probably going to have a lot more to say about this all tomorrow. But for today, I don't actually care that much what the gender identity was of the suspect, who is also deceased. And that's not to say that those details don't matter. They do matter. There's a lot of details that matter. These situations are never black and white. There's a lot of complexities and nuance to them. So I do tend to disagree with people who will focus on that and that's the only reason why. There's a lot of reasons why. And unfortunately, the only person who could ever answer these questions is no longer here. And neither is their mother and one of their siblings were also two of the victims. I care a lot more about those kids. The RCMP did a press conference earlier today. They said that most of the children who are no longer with us were born in 2012 and 2013. So they're very young. And I think that's what's most important, is to focus on them and to pray for their families. I really do believe that prayer works. Even if you don't believe in it, just give it a try for them, because they need all the help that they can get.
I'd like to correct some information that was shared yesterday and to clarify that 9 people in total are deceased as a result of this incident. Initially, it was believed that one of the victims, a female with significant injuries, who was transported from the scene by our members and then transitioned to paramedics, had succumbed to her injuries. Police have since confirmed that is not the case. She is alive and was one of the 2 female victims that were airlifted to hospital. Both of those victims remain in serious condition. The deceased victims from the school include an adult female educator, 3 female students, and 2 male students between the ages of 13 and 17. 2 additional victims, an adult female and a male youth, were located deceased in the local residence. The BC Major Crime Unit has assumed conduct of the investigation and is working to determine the full circumstances surrounding this tragic incident.